If you're a Bears fan and you're wondering why Justin Fields unfollowed the Chicago Bears, then you've probably seen this video.
No. Since we're here,
all right, come on,
what's with the unfollow with the Bears? What's up with that?
man, bro. I'm glad we're talking about it because why do people take social media so serious? Like,
But like, why you unfollowing the Bears?
This and that. Like, I still mess with the Bears. This and that. I'm just trying to take a little break. I unfollow the Bears and the NFL, bro. I'm not just trying to have football on my timeline. Like, I know y'all mess with a girl, EQ, especially you. Just because you don't follow the girl on IG, don't mean you're not messing with them.
That's true. That's true. That's facts. That's facts.
But you follow Luciana, right?
But listen, that's my girlfriend though. That's different. But I'm saying like when you're single, it's you really messing with the girls you don't follow more than the girls you follow.
You feel me?
Oh, like, so you're saying you mess with the Bears? You're saying you mess with the Bears more now that you unfollow them?
Man,
okay.
It's something that I don't want to see in my timeline. I'm about to go on vacation. I don't want to see no football. And guess what?
Just get a little away from
every Bears post. It's either
let's see who you follow.
Let's see who you follow. To the drive Caleb. So it's like, bruh, man, I'm tired of hearing the talk. We want,
like it's annoying.
We want, like it's just, bro, like it's time to just.
So you're telling me you don't follow no football, bro? You follow.
I follow Ohio State football. I don't follow the NFL. I don't follow the Bears.
Bleacher Report.
It's basketball season. They're not posting nothing about football, dog. They're not posting nothing about football.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Jerry, and today we're going to be talking about what Justin Fields just talked about. Kind of overhyped. I respect the St. Brown brothers on the 33rd Team podcast and what they did. Kind of leaving everybody on a cliffhanger with the little trailer, having Justin Fields on at literally the perfect time. He just unfollowed the Bears. Turns out he unfollowed the NFL too. So not as much to it, I think, as we hoped. We were hoping that there would be more to it, but I actually really like his answer. So let's go over it. He goes, man, bro, I'm glad we're talking about it. Why do people take social media so seriously? I still mess with the Bears. I'm just trying to take a little break. And then he clowns EQ. Equinemius St. Brown, he just clowns him and he goes, hey, you've had girls that you're messing with that you don't follow. And he agrees, and it kind of shows that EQ gets around, which, hey, good on him. But yeah, it seemed like it was a little blown out of proportion. I actually ended up seeing that CJ Stroud does not follow the Texans. And there's a couple other quarterbacks that don't follow the team they play for. I don't think it matters. It's social media. He says that he's going on vacation and he just wants to not have to deal with it on the vacation, which I can understand. But then you have people comparing it to what happened with Mitch Trubisky when he said he had to turn off the TV because he couldn't handle the heat. And so people, if you bring it up with him, you kind of have to bring it up with Justin Fields too. So I understand it. But he just said he wanted to enjoy the vacation. And I like the answer. I think it's honest, and I think it shows that he's a good person. And he mentioned he's tired of hearing, oh, draft Caleb, stick with Fields, draft Marvin Harrison, and like all this stuff. And it keeps going back and forth. So I'm happy that he's just going to enjoy his. I don't look at it as a negative. Like that, to me, I feel like it would be really annoying, especially with it seeming like the fan base is kind of tipping more towards the Caleb side of things, which I feel like I tipped pretty early. I haven't made a lot of Bears content, but like amongst my friends, I was calling for Bajent like 4 or 5 weeks into the season because I liked what I saw out of him in preseason, and I honestly wanted to see what Luke Getsy's offense would look like with Tyson Bajent. And it wasn't that I wanted to for sure be done with Fields, but it seemed like something between the offense that wasn't clicking. And I did like how Bajent looked in the offense with, I think, stats would not back me up here, but I think Bajent did look better in Getsy's offense with these quick throws that involve timing and throwing with anticipation. I think Bajent did that better. He overthrew some balls, and obviously couldn't make as electric of improvisational plays as Justin Fields did, but he's athletic too. This is not a Bajent video though. We're talking about Justin Fields. Again, I really like his answer. I think it makes a lot of sense, and it would be annoying to have the entirety of the fan base that's supposed to be cheering for you on the fence as to whether they want to keep you or if they want to move on from you. And it sucks. It really does, because for me personally, I wanted to stick with Fields last draft. I was in on him. I did not want to draft a quarterback. I wanted to, add to the team and make it better for him. And I was hoping to see that big change, and we just didn't see it. You could talk about the last 6 games. They went 4-2. Didn't really beat any great teams. They beat the Lions. Beat the Lions by, 28-13. So that was a good game. Was a very good defensive game. Had a defensive touchdown. But Justin Fields didn't play amazing. So for me, it hasn't been enough, and I want Justin to have success. I've also said amongst my friends that if he goes to the Steelers, AFC, that's going to be my AFC team. I always have like an AFC team, and for the past many years, honestly, it's been the Titans just because I really like Vrabel and I like Derrick Henry, but that whole thing has kind of come to an end. And if Justin Fields goes to the Steelers, I'm going to be cheering for the Steelers. I'm also a Wisconsin fan, so having TJ Watt and the Keanu Benton, Nick Herbig, Nate Herbig, like so many Wisconsin legends there. So I would be perfectly fine with Justin Fields going there, and it would be my my AFC team. And I also think Arthur Smith would be a great fit for him over there. So trying to make it not super negative. In a perfect world, Justin Fields just works out and he's better, but I haven't seen the improvement that I've wanted to see, especially in the most negative categories. You can talk about the fumbling issue, which really hasn't improved in his 3 years. His time to throw over the last 3 years has actually gotten worse as time goes on, and people say time to throw. Well, he's able to extend the play so much. His pocket time has still been towards worst in the league the last 3 years as well, so that doesn't factor in his ability to scramble. That's literally just his time in the pocket. So to me, those being his 2 biggest issues, not improving on them leads me to believe they should take Caleb Williams. And we have in the thumbnail too Shane Waldron. I think Shane Waldron's offense is going to fit better for a Caleb Williams type offense where it's a elite passing. Well, we'll see if he's elite in the NFL, but at least at the college level, elite level passing with the ability to run is more of what Geno Smith is. Geno Smith is not this like super athlete that is also a pretty good quarterback. He is quite literally the opposite. So I hope the best for Justin Fields. I'm ready to move on for Caleb Williams. If they stick with Justin Fields, I'll cheer for him. Like I don't hate Justin Fields. I'm not a hater. I've also said that if we didn't have this first overall pick and we were just picking at 9, we'd probably just be having conversations about what wide receiver we're going to take to try to elevate Justin Fields. And we're not even having the conversation. I don't think we would be having a conversation of, are we going to trade up to the first overall pick? What assets are we going to trade to get up to the first pick to take Caleb Williams? I don't think we're doing that. I think we're still with Fields, but we're just in this rare scenario where we have the first and the 9th pick, and they have a generational talent at quarterback. Or you could trade back 1 pick, get a haul from the Commanders, which is the star of this draft's hometown. You could trade back, probably get a couple firsts, a couple seconds, maybe a star like Deron Payne, and you could still get Drake May if you don't think that Drake May is far off. I'm kind of teetering on if I'd like to get a haul in Drake May. Like, if that's an option, I feel like I would probably take that because I actually really like Drake May, and a lot of Bears fans are questionable about it because of Trubisky, and they don't want to have the flashbacks, but I really like what I've seen from Drake May, and I think he's going to interview a lot better than Caleb Williams. So I think that could be a reason that even if it's not 2 firsts and 2 seconds, if it's just, an extra first, a second and Deron Payne, or if it's 2 firsts and a second and that's it, like I could see the Bears doing that to get this extra draft capital and get a very talented quarterback in Drake May. But I will hopefully be doing a quarterback breakdown video soon. I've been watching a lot of film on all of the top 6 quarterbacks: Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, J.J. McCarthy, and Michael Penix. Not necessarily in that order, but I've been watching a lot of film on all of them, and I have a breakdown video that I plan on getting to soon. So like this video, that will prompt me to get that out sooner, and then comment what you think about the quarterback situation, because I'm leaning towards Caleb Williams. I'm okay. I am also kind of teetering on this Drake May idea, and I'm still fine. Like, I would be fine if Fields gets it. I would definitely be the most. I would definitely question it the most if we stick with Fields, just because he hasn't shown enough to show that he is going to be this longtime star quarterback in the league. I've actually kind of going off topic here, but I've said amongst my friends that I think his career definitely could turn out like Michael Vick. Like Michael Vick, if you think about his career, he had a very electric start to his career. Then it'll be less with the dogs with Justin Fields, especially knowing Uno. We don't want anything to happen to Uno, but minus the dogs, Michael Vick. So he has the pretty electric start. Not crazy stats. Like, obviously he rushed for 1,000 yards, which was cool. But as far as passing, wasn't great. That's really how it's been with Fields. Then goes to jail, which we don't want Justin Fields to go to jail, and I don't think he will. But maybe he'll have a couple. If the next team he goes to, if it doesn't work out, maybe he has to sit back a couple years, or maybe he just bounces around and has a fairly successful year. I want to say Michael Vick only hit 3,500 total yards. That's rushing and passing twice or 3 times in his career. Justin Fields has still never hit that. So, but if you look at it, maybe he would hit 3,500 total yards, 2 or 3 times, and then bounce around, have like a 9 or 10 year career, and never live up to the hype that there was at one time, but still be a solid player in the NFL. I think that really could be a path for Justin Fields, and it's really going to depend on what team he goes to. The Steelers were favorited for a couple days, and now it's switched to the Falcons, which I really don't like the Falcons for him. I do like the weapons in the running game that they had last year, and Drake London and Kyle Pitts and the younger kind of coming together offensive line too. But the tough part for me is Raheem Morris is the head coach, who is a first-time head coach and a defensive-minded head coach. Who does that sound like to you? Does that sound like Matt Eberflus? A little bit, draft, like first-time head coach, defensive coach, with a quarterback that clearly needs development. Okay, let's go to the offensive coordinator. I can't remember his name, but he was the quarterback coach and passing game coordinator for the Rams. So a guy that has Matt Stafford as the quarterback, and Matt Stafford's been having success. He also hasn't called plays before because Sean McVay. So who does that sound like? Oh, Luke Getsy, where he came from Aaron Rodgers and didn't call plays before. So the parallels line up to Falcons being horrible. It would be cool for Justin Fields to get to go to his hometown and be the starting quarterback, because he would start if he went there. But that really scares me. Like the fact that you almost have a perfect parallel as the head coach and OC that we had in Chicago when we said we weren't doing the right thing for him. It really scares me. And now you have Arthur Smith, who I actually, in a video, I did a trade video where I had the Bears trading Justin Fields to the Falcons mid-season because Arthur Smith needed to save his job and the Falcons needed a boost playing in a shitty division. And didn't happen. Now Arthur Smith is on the Steelers. Mike Tomlin loves Justin Fields. Arthur Smith loves Justin Fields. They don't have the run game I think that the Falcons would have, but Jaylen Warren stepped it up, and I still have a little bit of belief in Najee Harris. I think if you have all 3 of those guys back there, I think that's scary. You have George Pickens, who Justin Fields actually was friends with at Georgia, and has thrown. He's been at the same camp. I don't remember what camp it was, but he was at the same camp with George Pickens and has thrown to George Pickens before. You have Deontay Johnson. I don't love Deontay Johnson, but he's fine. You have Pat Freiermuth, and you have Darnell Washington, 2 great tight ends. So I love that for the Steelers. We know the Steelers' defense is good. I still think the Steelers are the best fit for Justin. If he's going to have success in the league, I think it could be with the Bears, but it's like a 10% chance at this point just because of how far gone it is. He's going to have to learn a new system either way, but it just doesn't, to me, it doesn't make sense anymore. And especially if Fields doesn't work out, you don't have a lot of quarterbacks to point to next year, and you can't guarantee you're going to have a horrible, like a bad record to where you're picking in the top range anyway. So I think the best place is Pittsburgh for Justin Fields, and I think the the worst place at this point is Atlanta. But of the teams that have been talked about, he has been rumored to the Raiders too. I don't know how I feel about the Raiders because Luke Getsy just went over there to be the offensive coordinator. So that doesn't seem to make any sense to me because he did not play well in that offense. I think Aiden O'Connell would actually be better in Luke Getsy's offense than Justin Fields. You can hate me for saying that. It's the same thing with Bagent. Like, I think Aiden O'Connell plays that style just better than Fields does. And I think if you can get a offensive coordinator or a play caller that can design a good offense for Justin Fields, the sky's the limit with him because he is bigger, faster, stronger than most of the other people on the field, and he has the talent. It's just he needs the right offense. So we'll move off of Justin Fields, and we'll talk about this press conference that happened. Excuse me. So I'm not going to play any clips from the press conference. It was really long. It was like 50 minutes. I did listen to the whole thing, but there wasn't really anything that I thought was worth playing that I can't just talk about. So starts off with Eberflus, has this new sweet beard that is not patchy like mine. He was sweet looking. So good on Matt Eberflus for looking good for the press conference. But he basically just talked about some of the signings of the coaching staff, why they did it, and what he's excited about moving forward into the season. Nothing super notable to put in there except for that sweet beard. Then Eric Washington comes in, and I loved listening to Eric Washington. I listened to the CHGO Bears podcast every day, and they said that the whole press conference was really boring and they were snoozing, and it was very underwhelming. I really liked what Eric Washington had to say. He seems very confident in his ability and his ideas to build up the defense and specifically the defensive line. He was a coach for the Bears in the mid-2000s when they had one of the more dominant defensive lines and defenses in general in the NFL. When the Bears actually made a Super Bowl with Rex Grossman at quarterback because of how good the defense was. So I think that having him in there, I don't know if he was around for that team, but it was mid to late 2000, so he might have been around for that. But the point is he was around for a great defensive line, and that is the biggest need on defense, although Montez Sweat and Matt Eberflus's play calling really, really elevated the defense, and specifically the defensive line, towards the second half of the season. I just think, and it's not to say that the defensive line is bad. Even saying it's the worst aspect of the defense is probably a compliment because of how well it played towards the end. If you look at the last, I think it was the last 6 games, their defense was a top 5 defense, hands down. And they were tied for second in interceptions, and they were turning the ball over, which is what Matt Eberflus preached about being able to do, and going for the ball. That was what he always talked about. Nobody was able to do it. And then you start to see Jaylon Johnson getting interceptions. You're seeing Tyreek Stevenson, who, sure, he got burned like a handful of times. He was one of the best corners in the draft. And we talked about last week about losing Eddie Jackson, which I think it's bittersweet because he did have a good career in Chicago. He did good in the first defense ages ago in 2018. And when he was able to just sit back in the back and and play center field and just watch the quarterback's eyes and attack the ball. Once he was kind of moved out of that and they switched to that 3-4 defense, he just didn't quite play the same. And so we're losing him, which it sucks, but it was time. And I think it gives us a good opportunity to pick up somebody in free agency or even draft a new safety to finish off this very young cornerback group that we have. And we'll talk about Jaylon Johnson in a little bit here about the contract situation because he's got to be a part of it. But anyway, I liked what Eric Washington had to say. Again, very confident in the way that he speaks, and it seemed like he was a guy that the players would want to listen to. And that's another thing that I really liked is just his confidence and hopefully bringing the mindset of that mid to late 2000s Bears team back, because that was a smash mouth football team, and the defense just they were a great defense, and as far as history goes, a very underrated defense, because if they win that Super Bowl against the Colts, they're probably at least comparing it to the 85 Bears with the situation with having not a great quarterback. Punky QB was fun to watch, but Jim McMahon was not a great quarterback. And a solid running back and a monster defense. It would have been a very similar situation. So people would have been talking about it that way. And again, for him to be a part of the staff that was at least around that, I should have looked into it. I should have looked and seen if he was on that team. But point is he was close to it and knows that mindset. So I liked what Eric Washington had to say, and I'm very excited for him to be the coach. Even right when they hired him, I was very excited about it. I did want to hire a younger coach in the event that Eberflus gets fired and we hire an offensive-minded coach, and we could have a DC stick around to keep the defense the same. With how young our defense is and how talented it is, it would be nice to have a backup plan. But I'm not against this at all, because he seems like a great team player that can add to the defense as well as run the defense if Matt Eberflus needs to divert his attention elsewhere. So love Eric Washington. Very happy about that. Shane Waldron, on the other hand, was definitely kind of boring. It was hyped up that he was going to talk about the quarterback situation. And although he did answer questions about the quarterback situation, it was very, very trying to hide everything, which I understand. Ryan Poles wants to get as much value for Justin or as much value for the first pick as possible. So you can't show your hand either way. But just some of the ways he was talking, he didn't mention a player's name at all. So we'll start off. So he did mention seeing a decent amount of the Pac-12 teams. Mentioning, he didn't say Caleb Williams, but he was asked about him, and obviously he saw a lot of them being on the West Coast there with Seattle. So he saw a lot more of those games and is intrigued by Caleb Williams and by the draft prospects, as it sounds. But again, he did not go into detail very much about him. He did, though, mention something that's been a big trend in the Bears organization, that he's very interested at how the prospects are as a person and how they're going to interview and how the relationship is going to be, which actually led me to believe that Justin Fields would, kind of be the favorite. When I heard that, I'm like, oh man, they might actually be leaning Justin Fields. And then, and because Caleb Williams has been, that's the thing too, is with the speculation, Caleb Williams has been talked about as, he might not be a good locker room guy, and he's not going to be able to handle the heat in Chicago, and all this different stuff about they don't think that he's going to interview well. And it's from everybody that's been around him, all the people that have actually been around him have said good things. It's all been social media that sees him paint his nails and sees him dress weird and sees everything else that is saying this. So that's why I'm not as worried about that. But I do think it's very interesting that everybody in the Bears organization keeps mentioning about how they interview, because I feel like Justin Fields, he probably interviews as good as the best guy in the league every time, because he is a very, very good person. It doesn't seem like he ever freaks out or overreacts about anything. Would like to see him get a little bit more fired up on the sideline, when team's down, trying to fire the guys up. Didn't do much of that. Like to see a little bit more of a leadership role there from Justin Fields. But it's also tough when you're losing most of your games. It's tough to channel that. But not a very good excuse, but also, again, could be a concern with Caleb Williams. Is he going to be crying on the sideline? The whole crying thing, I don't really matter. I don't think that matters. If you think about the scenario too, where he cried with his mom, that could have been his last time playing college football at that point. So that would be a very emotional moment. I don't take that as criticism. But back to Shane Waldron, he was asked about his involvement with Geno Smith and how Geno Smith went from this journeyman backup guy to one of the better quarterbacks. I think he was looked at not this past season, but the previous season as a top 10 quarterback, and had a great season. And he still played pretty well this year, but the resurgence of Geno Smith. And he was asked about that, and he said the experience with Geno Smith was amazing. Geno Smith always kept a positive mindset. He always thought that he was supposed to be a starter in the NFL. He never lost that mindset as long as he was a backup, and as much as he bounced around, he said that he knew he was going to be a starter, and he said he loved that confidence, and he actually built a very good relationship with Shane Waldron, and those things kind of built off each other, and they built off of each other. So he said that they were always on the same page, and they had a very good relationship, and that was another point where he said that the relationship is so important between the quarterback and the offensive coordinator or the play caller, whatever you want to call it. The whole locker room, he said that the relationship is very important. So I like to hear that. I'm big on that. He also talked a lot about him needing the ability to adapt, and he said that he understands that the quarterback situation could go either way, but I think maybe he had heard that everybody in Chicago was mad because Luke Getsy would not adjust at halftime and make necessary adjustments to help the offense. And it seemed like he heard it because he talked about it a lot on how he wanted to be versatile and be able to adapt mid-game. And so that was definitely very good to hear. Again, I don't know if that was just because he somehow knew that Chicago had that problem and wanted to say something on that, or if that was his genuine thought. I'd really hope that was the case. Excuse me. But anyway, he was also asked about why he wanted to come to Chicago, because he was looked at as one of the best offensive coordinator prospects, available. Prospect, I don't know if that's the word, but he was one of the best available offensive coordinators, in the market. And his reasoning, the first thing that he mentioned was he liked the high draft picks. He said, it's not often that you have a team that has the first and the ninth, 2 top 10 picks. And that was the first thing that he said, which in coming to the team that I mentioned earlier, that I think we were leaning towards Fields with talking about interviews, then that swayed me to think, oh, is it because he wants Caleb Williams? But it also could be, if you're the new offensive coordinator and you want to build an offense, having a team that has the ability to trade back, take somebody like Marvin Harrison Jr., and have picks in the future to build the team a little bit how you would want to, that would also be very enticing. So I don't think you can read too far into that, but I think that's still very important. He also mentioned a solid core on offense. He just said solid core, and I mentioned earlier he didn't say any names. He was asked, who are you excited to be with on the team? And he didn't say any names. That was the other thing that was very confusing. He said, who are you excited to have on this Bears team? And he could have said DJ Moore. What a versatile player that can do it all. Cole Kmet has shined as Darnell Wright, Tevin Jenkins, whatever it is. He could have said anybody, and we would have been, oh, great. And he said nobody. So I thought that was really interesting and kind of odd that he wouldn't just say, even if he just would have said DJ Moore, nobody would have batted an eye. They would have, oh yeah, DJ Moore, that's an exciting, fun, talented player to have on your team. But he didn't say anything, but he did say that he liked that the offense had a solid core, including quarterback. Now that was a really important thing too, because it means that Shane Waldron clearly likes Justin Fields. It's up to if, and this kind of sways me back. So I say, at the beginning, I was like, oh, maybe because of the interview thing, he wants Justin Fields. Then he talks about the picks, and I'm like, oh, maybe he wants Caleb Williams. Then he talks about liking the solid core that they have, including the quarterback at Justin Fields and his running ability and his style. And that when he mentioned his the quarterback's ability and then mentioned the running, that brought into my mind instantly the speculation that the Bears could draft Caleb Williams and then keep Justin Fields. I don't know how they would do that or why they would do that. I don't know if they would try to put him into a Taysom Hill role, or I don't know what would happen there. That to me wouldn't make much sense, but it popped into my mind because people were talking about it. But I liked what he had to say. That was a surprise though, when he said, I mean, it shouldn't be a surprise, but it was to me because he wasn't mentioning any players. And when he said, I like the core, including the quarterback, I go, boy, he's really trying to lift this smokescreen up so nobody can tell what's going on. And he's doing a great job of it. He clearly got that message from Ryan Poles or Matt Eberflus on that situation. But then the other thing that he said is he likes the direction that the team is going. He said that everything seemed like it was on the up. You've got a lot of young talent on the team, and he also said the organization felt very connected. As soon as he came in for his first and second interview with Poles and Eberflus, he said they seemed very connected, which reminded me that's probably why Eberflus is still the coach, because he has a good relationship with Poles, and they think they have a good thing going, and I hope they do. But he said that they felt very, very connected as a whole unit, which I did love to hear, and it was nice to hear that from somebody on the outside, because technically he was not long ago on the outside, and to hear him make a comment on it, I do like to hear that. He also said that his most important part for the team is, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but trying to build with relationships. He was asked if he has contacted any of the players, and he said that he has. Wouldn't say who he contacted, but it sounds like he's gotten in touch with the players, which is good. You want to do that, but it's also going to be a struggle, because I think as far as like getting out a playbook or getting out a scheme, you probably scheme different for Caleb Williams versus Justin Fields. So he's going to want to know, hey, who's going to be quarterback? Just like Justin Fields was asking. He's like, all I want to know is if I'm traded or if I'm staying. And I'm sure Shane Waldron really wants to know too, because if he's building an offense for Caleb Williams, it's going to have to be a lot of shotgun. It's going to have to be probably a little bit more pass heavy than a Justin Fields offense, with sprinkled in some running plays, whereas Justin Fields, you probably have to implement a lot more option, some designed quarterback runs, and you have to set up some play action and some rollout, which you can do with Caleb too. But I do think the offense is going to be significantly different from one to the other. What else did he get asked? So he said he was asked about his play calling reps. So he was asked about, it was big for a lot of Chicago fans to have a experienced offensive coordinator after the failed experiment in Luke Getsy. And so he was asked, what's the most important thing that you've learned as a play caller? And do you think it's valuable that you have the experience? And he said it's very valuable to have the reps, especially because you learn situational things that as a quarterback coach or, any other position on the offense that isn't a play caller, you don't learn what plays to call. And you really can be the person at fault if you call the wrong play. It is your fault, and you have to learn from those mistakes. So it was great to hear him talk about that and bring up the situational awareness, because I don't think Luke Getsy had the greatest situational choices as far as football goes and as far as the play calling went. And then the last thing was like it was a kind of another question centered around why he picked Chicago, because he was a very highly touted coordinator prospect. He said that he thought Chicago is a very historic franchise. He likes the history of the city, and he mentioned the draft picks again. He mentioned the first and the ninth, and he said that he really liked the Bears. So I'm excited about Shane Waldron. I think the interview went well. I didn't like how sneaky he was. I mean, obviously he has to be sneaky with the quarterback, but just with not saying any players' names, that really kind of bugged me. It didn't make any sense. You should have at least, if you're excited about players on the team, let's be excited about it. Let's not be so boring and lame, because that's what I got from it. But I like what he mentioned and the experience, and I think whether we go Caleb or Justin, I think that's probably the best for both of them. So I'm very happy there. And then the last thing that I did bring up a little bit earlier was the Jaylon Johnson franchise tag situation. So it was rumored that the Bears really, really want to get a deal done with Jaylon Johnson. And I would love for them to get a deal done, because to me, it sounds like the Bears should go, hey, Jaylon, how about 5 years, $100 million? That's $20 million a year. Signed, sealed, delivered. You're the third or fourth highest paid corner in the league. You get to be where you want to be, because Jaylon Johnson did show his hand and say that he wanted to play in Chicago. He's also said he likes being home in California, so I could understand that. I don't think the 49ers have the cap space. I think the Chargers are in a borderline rebuild. Obviously, they have Jim Harbaugh now, but they have a lot of older, talented players that just don't seem to be working out. And then you have the Rams, who they're I can't tell if they're at the beginning or the end of the run. It kind of depends on how long Stafford's around to me, or if they can find somebody to fill his shoes, because a lot of people wrote off the Rams, and then they had the year that they had last year where they played great football. So I don't think any of those teams are as enticing as the Bears. Obviously, the 49ers would be the big one where, like, you definitely have a chance to win a Super Bowl and you get to be home too. But I don't think he would be happy with the money. I don't think they can pay him properly. So I think because of the Bears kind of being on this up and up, he knows the Bears now. He's been around. He was drafted by them. He knows he's kind of built a chemistry with the rest of the defense. It seems like he should just take, like, if the Bears offered him $20 million for 5 years, I feel like he's just got to take it. And if he's not settling for it, if he wants to become the highest paid, let's say it's $21.5 million a year, and they pay him, what is that, 107 over 5. It just doesn't seem like it's worth it to make $7.5 million more than the $100 million you're already making. I hope he gets a contract done. The thing I am worried about, they also talked about on CHGO, is how the Bears' history, they typically don't re-sign players that get franchise tagged. And I believe the last one they said that they signed that got franchise tagged was Matt Forte. Oh, no. No, who was it? Lance Briggs, I know they said got franchise tagged in 2006, and they signed him the following year. But it just doesn't happen. It was like, in the past, it was like 91% are gone. So I really would just get the contract done. Let's sign Jaylon Johnson. Let's pay him his $20 million a year and get it over with. Franchise tag scares me. If it helps make the deal and the deal works out, good, but it really scares me. I'd really like to see Jaylon Johnson back. I think that cornerback room with how Tyreek Stevenson, with how well he played, even just Jaylon Johnson, Tyreek Stevenson, Kyler Gordon, Jaquan Brisker, insert safety here, Geno Stone, people have talked about, or even just drafting one. I think that's money. That's a great DB room. You have Terrell Lewis, who slipped up a couple times, but actually I really liked him. He had a lot of nice one-on-one tackles, and he was actually pretty good in the tackling department. I mentioned in my last video that I kind of like to see him given a chance at least at safety. Maybe it's not what he wants to do, but he did get burned quite a few times at corner, and he's a rookie, so he can improve, but I do like seeing him on the field, so I wouldn't be opposed to that. And but I just think it sounds so much better with Jaylon Johnson, Tyreek Stevenson, Kyler Gordon. Like, those three should be on the field as much as possible, and that would be, I think, probably the best cornerback room in the league. I have to listen to some other people, see if they can compete with that. But I want Jaylon Johnson back. I've been a fan since the beginning. A lot of people hated on him for not getting turnovers, and I was always like, he's locked down. He's like Revis. Nobody throws at him because he just doesn't get targeted. He's just a lockdown corner, and that's how some people are. But some people like the big flashy plays like Trevon Diggs, where you get a bunch of picks, but you also let up a bunch of touchdowns. But so that's what I think on it. Again, I think the Justin Fields thing was a little overhyped to begin with, but I liked his answer. I liked how that went. Happy for him. I hope he enjoys his vacation. And then as far as Shane Waldron goes, I think he's boring, but I think he's the right man for the job. So I hope we can see a little bit more excitement out of him moving forward. But let me know what you think down below. If you have any other opinions, if you watched the interview, if you saw something that I didn't see. But yeah, like, comment, subscribe. Thank you for watching, and bear down.